You're listening to If Only I Were Wiser podcast, where Raina Wilson brings together wisdom and raw life stories to provide encouragement and truth. So many times it's easy to become discouraged in your own pursuit of health because your story or circumstances look drastically different from your favorite influencer or even the expectations you had for yourself. If that is you, welcome! This space is for you to learn, breathe, and maybe just listen and see what wellness could look like for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast. On today's episode, we have online encourager and fellow podcaster Rachel Awtrey. Rachel is the host of Behind the Bliss, a top-rated podcast which creates space for women to share stories and their reality of what life is really like behind the bliss. She is a fellow military mama and wife to her husband who serves in the Air Force as a pilot. Today's show covers so many amazing topics, from marriage and motherhood in the military to holding on to faith and managing expectations in motherhood and the mess. So stay tuned and let's dive in. Hey, Rachel, welcome to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun sitting on this side of the microphone. It's a little strange, but I like it.
Yeah, it's so fun. So for our audience, Rachel was really one of the biggest encouragements in launching this podcast. I took her podcast course, which was just like a huge wealth of knowledge to be able to sit down and just like put pen to paper, make, I think, your visions and dreams tangible. So thank you so much for just giving me the tools to be able to provide the background to even launching this podcast.
Oh, I'm just so glad that resource was helpful for you. It was so fun to make because I found myself in the same place being like, where do I start? Like, where does this even happen? But years of Googling and failures and attempts and successes, I was like, I'm just going to spill all the beans. There's no gatekeeping here. I'm the girl that I'm like, I'll go there. I'll share the secrets. So
yeah,
happy to do that.
No, I definitely appreciate it. So as we dive in, can you just share a little bit more about you for our audience? What does life look like for you right now? It's going to change soon.
I was about to say, I was like, I don't know how to introduce myself right now quite yet. I mean, I do, but things are about to change. My name is Rachel Awtrey. I say I'm an online encourager. I do a lot of things online, lots of different platforms. Podcasting is one of them. So if you're podcast people, hello. Hey, I'd love to be friends. I have a podcast called Behind the Bliss podcast that we started about 4 years ago. I say we because I started it with one of my best friends, and then it turned into this big adventure community thing, full-time gig that we both were like, hold on, let's make sure this is legit. And it felt just honored to be able to move on, move forward. My friend is still one of my best friends, but it is no longer a part of the podcast picture, which is kind of fun. We could be 100% besties now. I am married to an amazing guy named Thomas Awtrey. He is in the Air Force. He is a pilot here where we live in Birmingham, Alabama, inside the Air Force, but he also is a civilian pilot as well. And then we have a son who is almost 2 and another little baby on the way that we don't know who they are, what they are. It's going to be a surprise.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're due any day. So that's why I say things are about to change. I am a mom of 1.5, almost 2. But I get it. I feel like my life has touched a lot of different corners, from the military aspect. My faith is a huge part of who I am and what I do and why I do things. But also learning how to be a mom and a dreamer and a doer at the same time, and a wife. I get it. Like, lots of corners going on here.
Absolutely. How is your heart feeling, even just preparing for yourself and for your family for this new baby? I didn't know that you guys didn't know the gender yet. That's so exciting.
Yeah, I know. Who are we? I like that is not my personality. I just have to say. So for the people that are like, wow, she's so cool, I'm not. I don't know what possessed me to think that this was going to be a good idea. It has been easier than we thought it was going to be to not know the gender, which has been fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, my heart, good question. I think round 2 is interesting. Preparing for a second, because I feel like I have healthy expectations from what the first was as far as newborn life and what it takes and what happens postpartum to your mind, body, spirit, everything can just
Right.
change. And so I am sobered to that. I know what to expect, but at the same time, I don't know what to expect because this is a
Mm.
different baby. My circumstances are different. We had Maddox in the middle of pilot training and lived on a military base. We were best friends with all of our neighbors, and we have amazing neighbors now, but logistics are different. This baby will be different. So half of me is so excited and half of me is completely terrified. But I'm like, it's going to happen either way. And um, doesn't it go by so fast? I feel like everyone says
Mm.
that, but for real, it does.
No, for real.
So I'm kind of preaching to myself, like the hard days don't last forever. Like,
Mm.
you know further ahead than where you are now. Like I only know how to be a mom to a 20-month-old right now. I don't know what being a mom to a 5-year-old is going to be like. And I can't carry that
Mm-hmm.
load yet, but I do know what it's like to be a newborn mom. I've done it before. So I think the
Right.
nights and the days that are hard, I can tell myself like these end. This ends.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And that's sad and that's happy.
Yeah. My son is 18 months old, so I like can empathize with the mass chaos of little
Yes.
boys at this
Oh yeah.
stage. So, thank you for just sharing your story with us. And as we get into it, we can touch on, a variety of things, but I'd really like to just talk about like your
Sure.
military experience. I personally had no experience with military. I didn't really have family. I had extended family that were involved in military. My husband's in the army. It's a different world, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. So I would love to just dive in there.
Yes. Let's go. I did not grow up in a military family. So I'm like you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming to this like anything I experience has only been my experience and I can't speak for everybody, but yeah, we've been the past few years through, like I said, through pilot training,
Okay.
and that is like
Yeah.
eat, sleep, breathe Air Force and jet fuel. Like that's just what you're doing. Um and now we live in a civilian home in a civilian neighborhood. And my husband has a civilian job that I'm like, huh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, they're very like countercultural, lots of differences. And it's just so funny to live in both and realize how different they are.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So, what has it looked like to approach health in the midst of like a military community? Because I think there's a lot of options, and maybe it's different for the Air Force, but I think you don't have a lot of control for a lot of things. So, have you approached health?
That is a great question. Yes, not a lot of control. And I would even say it was really interesting going through what we went through as far as military life goes, being in the midst of the hustle, like shopping at the commissary, doing all the things
Mm-hmm.
during the pandemic, because
Mm.
you have a
Mm-hmm.
little bit less control than maybe the least bit of control
Oh,
you even
yeah.
thought you had to begin with. Because if anyone's going to shut down, it's going to be the government first.
Right.
So we had
Exactly.
all the we had all the protocol on base, which was just interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
so thinking through health for myself, and even like I was pregnant through that season. I lived postpartum through that season. I don't think I ever had taken my health as seriously because I think I felt more
Mm-hmm.
responsible than just for myself. I was like, okay, the decisions I'm making for my body and my overall health are going to affect my family just as much as they affect me. And so I felt almost this emphasis and compassion, I guess, towards myself from a third
Right.
party. So I almost felt out of body separated, where I thought I have to advocate for Rachel because I
Mm-hmm.
have people that are happy to advocate for me, but I'm going to be my best advocate because I know how I feel better than anybody else knows my own body or my own heart or whatever is going on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had to speak up and ask for help or say, I'm not sure that option is giving me peace. What are my other options? Which I think is really hard for us women to do, especially with the military perspective, because I don't wear the rank my husband wears. I'm kind of
Mm.
along for the ride. So it's beautiful because I didn't sign up for this. Like, I'm not held to the same standards because I'm not wearing the rank. I'm not in uniform.
Yes.
But I
Right.
do have this opportunity to respect him and the culture and our government and our freedom and what it takes to keep all those things in line. And so it was weird carrying both and realizing like I can advocate for myself because when Rachel's healthy, I can provide a healthy home for
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, and Thomas is more healthy. I
Mm.
can build a healthier environment for my son, and then therefore, like, we can be healthier in the ways that we're outpouring in our community, which at this point is military. So I did realize it's not selfish to advocate for myself. It's actually one of the most selfless things you can do, is to swallow your pride and say, I don't like that. What are my other options? Easier said than done, but that's kind of the synopsis of what I learned. And it has
Mm.
truly impacted, I think, even the way I live now in the civilian world.
Mm-hmm. So what has that transition been like for you to go from, a military context to now more of a civilian context with baby number 2?
I think everything has changed. I just had this conversation with my husband and my doctor yesterday, because I was, one, yes, we are not having him or her. Wow, did I just assume? Like, do I subconsciously know what this baby is? No. We are not having this baby in like any kind of military realm other than insurance. That's like the only military aspect
Yeah.
that's touching this child.
Right.
I do get a lot more decisions this time, but I can't tell honestly if it's a military thing or if it's the health world in general is a little bit
Right.
more lax because we're not in the middle of 2020, 2021.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure it out. Like, is it a military thing, or is it just that I have more options available because
The world's not shut down.
yes, the world's not collapsing, I feel like, in front of us. So great question. It has been different. I like it this time.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it last time. I think that is something I would encourage someone in, if they feel like stuck, or they feel like their decisions have been pulled out from under them, or they don't have an opportunity to speak up, or whatever it looks like in their circumstance. I'd say, but there's still something out there for you. Like, even if you delivered a baby in the middle of a pandemic with military making decisions for you, telling you whether your husband is going to be able to be a part of the birth or not, like big decisions,
Right.
it was still beautiful. And I'm not trying to be like toxic and positivity and all the things. I'm just saying, like, there are certain moments that are a part of that I would have hated to miss because I was so disappointed and frustrated that my reality didn't meet my expectations. And so I think managing expectations is a huge part in health, because I can advocate all I want, but it's also not up to me at the end of the day. Like, I did put my life in the hands of doctors, but I also have to trust that,
Right.
this is where faith comes in, that the way this story ends is going to be better than I ever could have expected, because the God I serve promised me that. And so it's one of those surrenders where I can do my best. I can show up, I can speak up, I can be obedient, I can say that doesn't give me peace, but the result is something that I can't go ahead and make up in my mind. It's not fair for me or for anybody else. So I think going through this round 2 in a civilian world, it has given me a different perspective where I'm able to be more kind to myself and to others.
Right.
I don't feel like I have to put on my boxing gloves. I just realize that you shouldn't have to fight anything or anyone. And if it ever gets to that point, maybe take a deep breath, take a step back, and reevaluate the expectations you have, and why maybe like the defense is a stance you feel like you have to take, because this is a beautiful opportunity to just truly surrender and be like, it's not that I don't care. I'm not surrendering because I'm like, I give up. I'm surrendering because I realize I can shake this as much as I want, but it's going to shake out however it's going to shake out.
I had a conversation with a good friend of mine. I remember in the first early months, like walking in the military compared to a civilian world, I told her that living in a military community removed the facade of any control that I thought that I had to begin with.
Man.
Approaching it from a faith perspective, the Lord has total control. He has total sovereignty. His heart for me is nothing but goodness. Doesn't mean that we're not going to encounter hard things, like the military gives us hard things, but I think it was such a blessing to surrender that expectation at the very beginning of, I have no control whether I'm in the Army, Air Force, whatever. We have no control, period. But like, if I surrender the expectation that I have any control over this to begin with, at least I can walk into some of the military nuances and difficulties and hardships with a little bit more peace. So I think you just had a great encouragement in that.
Goes for a lot of people, even outside of military. And I'll say, like, I kind of miss the military telling us what to do. Like, we're only part-time with military now, so a lot of the decisions are on us, and we face decision fatigue every day because we've been in we've been in a culture where
oh yeah,
they tell you where to go and how high to jump every day. So now we're like, where do we go? Where do we turn or whatever? And Isaiah 30:21, I think it is. It says that the Holy Spirit basically stands behind us, telling us to look to the left and to the right and listen to his voice and go where he tells us to go. And so in those decision fatigues, when you're used to the military telling you, this is what you do, these are the decisions you make, or these are the decisions we're making for you. We're voluntolding you to do something, to a completely different culture where we have a lot more responsibility and freedom. It's intimidating. So I do want to say, like, I also just want to say, like, the military is not all that bad. We miss it like 100%. And there's growing pains in either way. There's growing pains if you're in the military living on a base, like birthing a baby at a base, like if you're doing the entire military thing, there's growing pains. If you're doing the entire civilian thing and dabbling a little bit, whatever, like there's growing pains. So I also want people to hear me say, the grass is not greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. And so where are you? Are you looking at the other grass, hoping it's like that without even realizing it's AstroTurf? It's not even real grass. It's not fair to compare yourself.
Yeah.
But like, do the work and plant your feet and realize, like, you can sit in a corner and be upset about circumstance, or like we're talking about, you can kind of surrender it. Be like, what a neat opportunity for the Lord to move in this in a way that I can't move for myself. So, like, God, would you step in and direct me, but also provide for me? Because I know that you love me more than I could love myself or my family. So you care more than I do.
Absolutely.
And you have more resources than I do. So that's a neat invitation.
And I think it's just, I'm not going to discredit the fact that that's hard.
Yes.
Like, I still have to surrender that. It's not a one-time surrender. Like, I didn't walk into the military the first couple months and be like, I got it. I'm going to be completely content after this. Because I was not, newsflash. We were not. We still had hard days. We still currently have hard days. I think it's exactly what you said, an opportunity that we can either like grind against ourselves and the path that like the Lord has set before us, because there's opportunities wherever we go. But I think the perspective to see, no, like the grass is greener where you water it. Because we hear that all the time, like comparison is the thief of joy.
That's right.
But I think especially in motherhood and walking out of, like, transitioning out of the military culture, it can be even more so one of the biggest lies that you can believe.
Yes. And I think that's where motherhood comes into play too, where you're like, I've learned even in motherhood, I don't have as much control over life as I thought I did. Babies take different naps than you thought they were going to. They have a different opinion today than maybe they had yesterday. I might have a different opinion today than I had yesterday. And so, yes, it's been interesting. I think beautiful too that I have had both the military transition and the motherhood transition blended. I think I just got like stripped, of everything I ever thought this was going to be. But gosh, it's so much more beautiful than I think I could have planned it out for myself.
Yeah. What has that been like in the transition to motherhood specifically, of like laying down expectations in general?
So SparkNotes version, it took my husband and I a few years to get pregnant with our first. And that right there revealed to me that this is just going to look different than you dream up as a little girl. And the trying to conceive process, very strange. And then you get pregnant and you have this pregnancy, you learn a lot about yourself and your body and everything. Then you have this beautiful child and you have hard days and you feel guilty that things are hard, or you feel guilty missing the freedoms or the life or the person that you had or were before. And then you throw in again, like the infertility journey that we went through, it just adds a different dynamic to it all, because I remember I just would be like, I prayed for this and here I am, like praying that this would be easier. But I was at a point in my life where I was like, I would do any, and now I'm like, I don't know if I would have done anything for this. This is really hard. And then you add social media, which is a world that I live in, like as my job, like social media is my income.
Right.
And you see and you hear all these beautiful stories and beautiful pictures of what people are walking through in their early newborn motherhood days. And I'm like, mine does not look like that. And I just struggled. Like that was so hard for me. But again, I learned a lot about myself, and it's so funny. They say like you get married because you want to get to know the other person better, but then you actually get to know yourself better. I think motherhood is the same, where You have a baby because you're like, I want to welcome you into my world. And then you realize, wait, hold on. This baby's welcoming me very much into his world. And like maybe just the actual world that isn't my world. It's just the world. And how do I fit into it? And so it was a lot. It felt like the best way I know how to describe it, and I tell my friends, is you're switching gears in a car manually without a clutch. Like you just gotta like yank it into the gear it belongs in. But that is something that I think is like, again, another, I hate saying this over and over again, but it's just so true. It's another opportunity for you to get refined. Be like, what? Okay, so we're switching gears here. We're pivoting, but what parts of me do I want to leave behind in that past gear that I don't want to carry into this gear? And we don't get those big life altering identity crisis-ish moments often, like motherhood, that give us truly like a restart, a refresh, being like, who do I want to be as this version? Like, who do I want to be in front of my kids? Not that I'm putting on a show, but I get to choose. What parts of me am I proud of I want them to see and carry on my legacy with, and what parts of me do I not want them to see? And so yes, that motherhood journey was very interesting. I think especially adding like the infertility journey. And then we got pregnant again. We got pregnant right after Maddox turned 9 months, and then miscarried that baby. And that was another whole thing too. And I talk about this on my own podcast, but full of emotions and lots of emotions no one talks about. Like part of me so devastated. Part of me guilty, thinking I didn't prepare my body the same way. So maybe I wasn't like a home, like I wasn't a great home. Right. And part of me relieved, because what the heck, I did not expect that. Like when I saw that positive pregnancy test, I kind of panicked. Right. So then losing the baby, I was like, well, maybe this is good. I don't know. Like it's so many emotions no one talks about. And I think all you see is grief, which there is grief, but it's not all grief. And then we got pregnant again really quickly with this baby. So like being pregnant 3 times, I feel like within a year and a half has taken also my emotions on a roller coaster and my hormones and chemicals on a roller coaster, where I've had to realize that how I feel isn't truth either. And that's so hard for us as women to be like, I feel lonely. But then you look up and you realize I'm not actually lonely. I'm just choosing to believe I'm lonely. Or you might actually be lonely. Who knows? But at least filtering through how I feel is not who I am has been another motherhood thing. So like lots of things. I'm like, that's why I was like, we could really, there's so many tangents, but the motherhood health journey has been so wild, so cool, so good and revealing, but uncomfortable. And I'm okay admitting that.
Yeah. And I think the messy part is something that I think you touched on. Like nobody talks about some of these things, and we can dive into social media too, because I think that has a major unspoken influence, or one that I was not prepared for coming into pregnancy and postpartum. I think you just said it beautifully. Like it's not just grief, but it's so hard to love your friends through a wide expanse of emotions. So what encouragement would you give, or what would you have wanted to hear in those moments?
I had a lot of things said to me, a lot of things that I'm like, this is what you shouldn't say. But I do have those standout conversations that gave me so much peace. Right. And infertility and miscarriage, I feel like we're both so different in their own ways too. So I'll have one for both, because I think it's hard to lump them. For the infertility, I feel like somebody just encouraged me and said, there is no rush. They almost, like I said in the beginning, separated me from my body, because we as women feel so connected, and that's so cool. But at the same time, I'm like, I think my brain puts my body under the pressure, or my spirit inside of me is really trying to relax and my body can't, or is in pain, but I still have peace. Like they are also very interconnected, but disconnected at the same time. And she just kind of painted the picture like, it's okay to separate from this and to not rush, and to allow your body to take its time. And I feel like I finally had the permission to take a deep breath and realize there's not enough like holistic diets that I could look at. There's not enough chiropractor or acupuncture appointments I could go to Do they work? Maybe, but it's not up to us to figure out if this was the reason why I got pregnant or not. It's totally in God's timing. And so she just was like, I just don't want you to rush this. Like,
Right.
we'll never know what made a baby or what kept a baby. We'll never know. So that's not fair for you to play those games either. And so that was really helpful. For the miscarriage, I think it's really unique, our story, that we got pregnant really quickly after we miscarried. Because it's so neat to know that had Harlow, which is what we named baby 2, had Harlow not joined Jesus when he or she did, this baby I'm carrying wouldn't have an opportunity for a life. And so I am just so excited to meet who this person's going to be and the legacy that they already have, because they kind of shouldn't be here if the plan had been up to me. And so looking at it from a lens of, but you don't know what's on the other side of this. Like, I know this hurts. I know this actually just sucks. But someone told me, basically, we're told that we have a great cloud of witnesses in heaven. Like, we're promised that in scripture. So what does it look like for your baby to now be joined, like be a part of that great cloud of witnesses who is interceding in heaven on your behalf on the days that are hard, to be like, Lord, please, like, help my mom. She's on her hands and knees struggling through my loss, and to think like how powerful that they're on that side of your spiritual walk, that they are able to be your advocate in heaven instead of just your child on earth, was so moving. I mean, I don't know if people can tell I'm crying. I'm like, it just was so moving and so freeing to be like, you know what? I'd rather them be up there than be down here with me. If selfishly, if that's what they could do for me, like, I want them there.
Yeah.
And that just, again, like, gave me so much peace. And so I just know Harlow is like cheering on our family, whatever it looks like from here on out. Just so excited, being like, I love y'all. I can't wait to meet you. Like, I got your back. I'm here interceding for you. It's such a beautiful picture that we are told is going on. And so I cling to that on hard days, being like, I need some prayer. I'm like, I will get on my face, but I know I've got babies in heaven that are excited and cheering me on too.
Yeah. And that's just, like, I think a beautiful picture of the Lord's faithfulness, that he doesn't abandon us in the hard things. And I think for people that don't understand or don't currently have a faith journey, it's hard to see people walk through hard things, or just see like the yuckiness in the world and think like, okay, but if God really loved us, these bad things wouldn't happen. All of the darkness, like, people wouldn't lose babies, people wouldn't lose family members, like, infertility wouldn't exist. But I think it comes back to the root of, like, the brokenness in the world manifests also in our bodies. So there's brokenness in our bodies, but I think it's just so encouraging, like you said, to hear, number one, that the brokenness or the loss of your baby was not your fault.
Right.
You did not do anything, or could have done anything differently to change the outcome. But in that outcome, the Lord is always faithful. He is sovereign over the womb. And you have little cheerleaders in heaven. Like, that's so, I get emotional just thinking about that too, because I've had that conversations with friends recently walking through loss, that it's not your fault and the Lord isn't surprised. And I think that's just a beautiful picture of God's faithfulness, is you have so many cheerleaders that are going to love and support your baby that's currently in the best place that they could be, but also is going to love the baby you have right now.
Right. Yes. And ushered in the space for them to have a chance and to be who they're going to be. And I think that's so cool. I think too, like, about the whole, and this kind of goes to our whole conversation, but I wrestle all the time with, God, if you're good and you love me, why the hecky is this happening? Like, I think I ask that question way, way often. Yeah. And I always come back to, but I wouldn't understand his goodness if I never understood the brokenness either, like the brokenness of the world. And I wouldn't cherish the things that I have had they just come as I expected them. Oh my goodness, no. Like, and I think we've all had situations or stories like that, whether it's the kids in our family we have because we struggled to get them here on earth, or it's, hey, I've lost something, so I love the things I have much more. Or I'm able to find gratitude more easily. So I'm like, the beautiful things that you think are just beautiful, the reason why you actually think they're beautiful is because you've seen ugly and you have something to compare it to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's God's design, to be like, I am good. And the only reason you know I'm good is because you've had a taste of yuck.
Mm-hmm.
And so isn't that yuck so bad? Isn't my goodness so good? So why would you choose to live in the middle? Like, why wouldn't you just choose to leave it all and choose me? Not that you won't experience the yuck, but my goodness would overcome it every time. Like you'd give me the chance to have the final word. And I'm like, gosh, I have learned more than ever in this military, motherhood, infertility, miscarriage journey. Like, I need God to have the final word. I need that closure. And so I'm going to give him a chance every time.
Because my words don't work. I had that conversation with a friend recently. I was like, if I just do it my way, I'm going to completely ruin all of this. But I think...
Yes. I'm like, you don't want me touching the master plan.
No, Lord, thank you so much for the fact that I don't have total control. And I heard very early on from a pastor of mine that he said, when we walk through, whether they're inconveniences, somebody cuts you off, you stub your toe, or you like walk through loss in any circumstance, he said, how beautiful is it that those are all reminders of how much we need God.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I was just like, oof.
Yeah.
Whether my son was supposed to take an hour nap, he slept for 15 minutes. I got none of the things done, which is all too common at the stage that we're at.
I connect with this.
But how sweet is it that when my son wakes up and I'm super frustrated, I've got all the things to do, but in that moment of hurt, brokenness, whatever, that's just a simple reminder of how much I need the Lord. And so his encouragement in that moment was like, tell him that. You can tell him all of those things. Like, tell him you're pissed that you wish your son had slept so you could have read your book. Tell God that you're upset with your circumstances. Tell the Lord that you're hurt. Tell the Lord that you're desiring a baby, or you're desiring this job, or you wish that you just had blank. And I think that there's freedom found in admitting the desire for those things, but it also comes with the surrender that knowing even if we had those things, it wouldn't solve the problem. God's goodness is what fills the gaps. And like exactly what you said, standing in the Lord's goodness and standing in his provision doesn't mean that we're not going to come with hard things, but there's hope on the other side of that.
Yes. We just have something bigger to fill in the gaps.
I think it was just super interesting that you mentioned social media. Like you said, this is your full-time job, but I'm curious to how, because the enemy is good at his job. So he's going to pull in whatever he needs to do to speak lies over the life that the Lord has given us.
That's right.
So what was social media and influence on you, especially like being in the world through pregnancy, postpartum, and these transition seasons?
Yes. I think social media is one of those things that's just such an easy, quick little burst of oxytocin. Like in the moments that I pick up my phone and I start scrolling, it's so interesting because it's typically because I'm stressed or I need to veg or I'm upset about something. And so I truly think it's my brain being like, we need to be happy and this gives us quick happy. So let's just look real quick. For whatever reason, maybe it's like a picture of my friend's baby on my feed makes me happy. That's great. Or maybe it's because I have an encouraging direct message. That's great. Like it's all happy, whatever. But I think it's so dangerous to turn to something and expect it to make us happy. And you brought it up, but like it's totally a tool of the enemy. It's a tool, right? And with any tool, the enemy is going to steal, kill, and destroy. That's just what we're told.
Right.
In John 10:10, like that is his mission. And so if he can pervert and extort a tool that could be so cool for connection, community, keeping up with your friends, seeing beautiful pictures, sharing beautiful encouragement, he's all like the enemy is going to step in and try to pervert that. And I found that in like late night nursing sessions when nobody else was up in the world. And they were, I just didn't think they were. There's other mamas nursing with you at 3 a.m. I can guarantee you. I would just scroll because I was like, I don't know what else there is to do. It's dark. I can't read a book. Like, what am I supposed to do? And those are some of the most vulnerable moments. Hormonally, logistically, like you look at your day, you are awakened from your sleep to look at something and then go back to sleep and meditate on what you just looked at.
Right.
So the enemy is going to use that time. And I think I was so vulnerable even in the early newlywed, new mother journey that I allowed that to define the standard that I thought it was my job to uphold. That's kind of where I've like had this big heart shift in social media, even in the past 2 years, because just so people know a little context, I got started in social media completely on accident. My husband and I took a job right out of the gates from college. We got married really quickly after college. Took a job that took us on an awesome adventure, moved us back and forth between Alabama and California. So we lived half of our year on the East Coast, half of our year on the West Coast. We'd literally ride like 4-wheelers to work. Like we're in the mountains of California.
Yeah, super
casual.
range.
Like it was awesome, right? So I think people were very just interested because our life looked so different. Living on a ranch and living ranch life and just having a blast. So I think that that's what brought, actually, I know that that's probably what brought followers, and encouragement. And there was things that were being shared. So things grew quickly. Started the podcast with my best friend, and that was fun. It was supposed to be a summer adventure, just a summer hobby, turned into what it is today. I'm so grateful, but that I think also led to some growth, just being okay, being the girl to break the ice. And I'm happy to do that.
Right.
And it's refreshing. And so I think that a lot of people joined me online because hopefully I pray like I brought some kind of refreshment to what the social media world could be. Anyways, I never started my social media journey to be a blogger, an influencer, to have promo codes. Like that's not why I did. Then I learned, oh wait, you could make money from this. And my husband's career is going to take us back and forth to whoever knows where. So how convenient could that be, right? Like if I could just work remotely. So said yes to this whole big journey. So anyways, I just want people to hear me say, like, I never ventured for this to be my thing. It just kind of fell in my lap, which is really cool, but also scary because I never really thought this through until, like I said, I had this epiphany 2 years ago, about almost, where I realized like, oh snap, this can be dangerous for me. So I know it's dangerous for other people. And I was convicted about what I was posting. Like, was I romanticizing my own life? Was I capturing my own beautiful moments without giving full picture? Was I whatever? And not that the world deserves my full picture, but the world deserves the right picture if you're going to share any picture.
Right.
And I just have had this different filter at when I share things, why I share things, and how I share things. And it has been so cool. For the response, I feel like I have more freedom just to be who I want to be online, and people follow or they don't, and that's cool. I know who my people are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have been the consumer, and I also have this interesting opportunity to be the producer of content. And I want to protect my friends online and call us higher as moms and women and believers, and hopefully put something on a platter that's legit and not just sugar coated. So yeah, that's been the social media journey from kind of both sides. It's just so fascinating, and it's such still a new world. It's the wild, wild west, and we have to be really careful when pioneering unmarked territory, because you can get into some poison ivy, you can get into a bear trap, or you can find the most beautiful meadow ever. But you have to know where you're going and why you're heading in that direction.
Yeah. How did you intentionally protect your heart as a consumer, like you said, in those vulnerable times?
A lot of it was just, okay, this is going to seem really robotic, and I still haven't figured this out completely, so I'm just kind of sharing what I've learned. It is discipline. I think if it's coming naturally to you, it's either because you've done a heck of a good job with discipline, it's become a habit, which I just would probably say is 2% of people, or it's coming naturally for you because it's a bad habit, and like me, you're picking up your phone to get a hit of oxytocin. Whether you know that's what you're doing or not.
Right.
Subconsciously, like your body's craving it. It's addicting. And so like the only way to beat any kind of addiction is to realize this is a problem for me, and it deserves boundaries. And there's great boundaries. Like we have boundaries for good reasons. We have boundaries for bad reasons. We have like some people hate the word boundary because they think I'm keeping things out. Like you don't belong here. But boundaries are also good because they keep the things that belong inside too.
Definitely.
And I don't want to lose my peace Like peace I want inside my gates. Like I want my peace to stay with me. And if I don't have a fence up, my peace is going to wander away. And so I started having to just ask myself, like, what do I value? And gosh, I want to be a peaceful person. I don't want to be anxious. And if when I look at my phone before bed, I get anxious and I have a hard time calming my mind, I'm just going to stop looking at my phone before bed. Like easy fix.
Right.
You know, but it's discipline. It's breaking a habit. It's having to battle your instinct, like battle what you feel like should be normal.
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling rushed in the morning because you didn't put your feet on the ground before you checked your email? Like having to ask yourself these hard questions and being honest with the truth that comes up, I think is the best place to start. And that's where I try to really take inventory over my mind and my heart and my phone, because again, beautiful tool, but it can also turn quick ugly real quick.
Mm-hmm. I had a friend that we did a lot of really cool life this past year, but one of the great things that she always commented on was social media is neutral. And I never really thought about it like that, like exactly how you mentioned. It's a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is not inherently bad. I think what's bad about it is our approach and our hearts. So it's like, am I coming to check my phone?
Yes.
Anxious, whatever it is. But I think it was just a breath of fresh air to be able to even step back and say, okay, let me just check my heart. Like you said, take inventory of my thoughts. How does my actions change? How does my heart change? How do my words change after I'm scrolling? But also, like, how do I curate the content that I'm going through? Like you said, to protect your peace. Because I realized when I did take inventory, there were a lot of things on there that were fueling sinful parts of my heart and were not making me a better Raina. Like I would come out worse out of scrolling and being a consumer than I thought I would be coming out better.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was really the first step to, okay, we can use this tool and like use this like really good resource, because I love social media. I love connecting with people. And I think it's a beautiful form of, when used the right way, authentic relationships. But if I'm not guarding my heart and being intentional about that, I can scroll through all the new postpartum moms that like have their hair, eyelashes and everything done. And I'm over here covered in milk. And,
that's right.
You know,
leaking. Yeah.
So yes. Just sitting there, like you said, exactly at 3 a.m. being like, why can't I have this life?
I don't relate. What's wrong with me? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think that put a new layer of responsibility on me as a producer, realizing doesn't mean I have to step away from producing on social media. And I think also like that's not always the answer.
Right.
Because if all of the people that were encouraging and brought life stepped away from the newsfeed, what is left? Ugh, like that's the worst. And not that I'm like, oh, I'm a savior. I got you. Like I'm going to be your superhero and show up on your newsfeed. No, I'm not. I know I'm going to mess up. I know I have messed up. I've had to apologize. I get it. But if I could be an interruption to the darkness and just bring a little bit of light, it doesn't matter how dim or how bright my light is, it's an interruption. And it can get your attention, make you log off, bring up a topic for you to have conversation about later within your own heart or the people you love. Like I want to be that. And I also want to be the person that breaks the ice and is like, can we talk about this? Can someone just say this is not normal, you know? And if we don't have any of the above, then it does turn dark again, like I said, really quickly. And so I think that as consumers, we can realize like we're all actually influencers. We all are contributing in one way or another. Whether our contribution is, hey, I don't have actually any pictures on my profile. I literally only scroll or look at stories. I'm like, you're still contributing. Like what you look at and what you're consuming matters. But then also for the people that are sharing, I'm not saying like write a devotional and put it on your Instagram. But I'm just saying like, please be authentic. Just be honest. If you're posting a picture because you want to prove something or you need the affirmation, maybe don't. If you're posting something because you realize, gosh, I wish I had heard this, please do. You know, like use those measurements and barometers for why you're sharing what you're sharing and who you're sharing it with anything in life, but especially a platform that is too easy to share on and too easy to consume from, like social media.
Definitely. And I think that's a perfect segue as we wrap up to close is Like that is, I think, the whole inspiration behind this conversation. Like there are so many things when dreaming about this conversation, dreaming about this podcast with my husband was, what were all the things that you wish you knew? And I would like love to just share, like that's my heart behind this podcast is like, these are all the things that nobody's talking about. Or these are all the things that like, if I could have gone back to my 16-year-old self and had spoken this truth, not that she would have listened.
Sure.
But at least I had access, you know,
yeah.
to just hearing truth on a variety of topics, then it's worth it.
Yes.
So before we wrap up, I have one final question for you. We cover it with all of our guests just because, like I said, this is a platform for sharing wisdom and truth. So it would be, if you could provide any wisdom to your younger self or a community that is listening, what would you share?
So good. I would share the importance of doing the integrity work, like behind closed doors. I think especially being someone with a platform that is however big or small people think it is, like I have to make sure that I'm not sharing something just for the sake of sharing it, but it's something that's actually touched or broken my own heart first. And that should bleed into everything in life. If I'm having a conversation with my husband, have I handled this behind closed doors, like between me and the Lord first? Or, or am I bringing it up because I'm like, daggum, I want you to hear me. If there's something happening in a friendship, or even like, oh, I'm so grateful for this. Like, have I first gone to a sacred spot in my relationship with the Lord? I've been like, Lord, thank you. I'm so grateful. So I think finding the integrity within yourself to be honest, to address the things that are ugly and no fun, but then also to find the things that you're like, I'm freaking cool in this area and I know it, I think is so important and allows us to walk in more freedom, to love others well, and takes a lot less effort, I feel like, to be the person that I feel like we need to be. I'm like, what if we just are the person we are, but we know who we are and we've addressed the places that we are first, before feeling like we have to perform or twist the image that we want people to be portrayed by, or we want to be portrayed by. I'd just say doing the work, the integrity work behind closed doors is, I wish I had done that sooner in my life and taken it seriously.
The integrity work, it's messy and hard, and it will not stop on this side of heaven. But I think that's so wise just to continue to be encouraged in doing the work, because there's a lot of other people doing the work. And the Lord will put those people in your life to like shoulder to shoulder walk with you. Thank you so much, Rachel, for this conversation. It's been so rich.
Good. I needed this. Girl talk is so much fun. It's just always so funny when it's recorded. Oh my God. That's what I hope this is. A conversation. Everyone grab your coffee.
Yeah.
Just listen to us chat.
Just join us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored that you asked and that I was able to be here.
Definitely. Where can our community connect with you? Like I mentioned, you've got your own podcast. You have a podcast course. Where can our community connect?
Yes. So you can find pretty much anything if you go to rachelawtrey.com. I'm also on Instagram. I feel like that's kind of like the next main thing besides podcast world is Instagram, at least for me. And you can find me there on rachel.awtrey, the podcast. Because if you're listening to this, you're probably a podcast person. Hey, hop on over to Behind the Bliss podcast. We have a show every Wednesday. Lots of fun. But if you kind of want to be in the loop and you want fun emails, and I also would hate for you to buy anything full price. So I'm like happy to be like the sales girl for you too, to help you shop for anything or live life or find a fun recipe or playlist. I just like to be a friend online. So you can actually text the word bestie, BESTIE, to the number 55444 and it signs you up for our email list. We don't spam you. I promise we only share fun things, but you can hop on that list there.
Yes, it's been the best content. I follow Rachel for several years, and it's just been such a blessing and just awesome opportunity to share this space with you.
Thanks. Honored to be here. Proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. This episode of If Only I Were Wiser has ended, but be sure to subscribe for more episodes so you don't miss any encouragement. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to build our community and share more about topics that will be healing and helpful for you. See you in the next episode.